American comedian Groucho Marx once was quoted, "The secret of life is honesty and fair dealing. If you can fake that, you've got it made." Honesty is an important quality, one that our parents have emphasized for us since we were young. Famous figures such as Abraham Lincoln, Ben Franklin, and other people thought of with high moral character have been quoted speaking of the importance of honesty. However, honesty is not always the best policy. A friend asks you your opinion on a new wardrobe you don't really like. Your boss asks you your stance on an issue you aren't familiar with. Sometimes lying, whether white, black, or by omission, is just the normal thing to do. A study published in the Journal of Basic and Applied Psychology found that 60% of people lied in a 10-minute conversation with a stranger at least once, with the average being 3 times. But surely college students, like us, never lie, right? Wrong. Bella DiPaolo conducted a study where she instructed 77 college students and 70 community members to write down every lie they told each day in a journal. On average, college students admitted to lying twice a day or more, double the amount of regular community members. Whether we like it or not, lying is common and a part of our daily lives, despite the social norm telling us the importance of honesty. In actuality, being honest is an incredibly dangerous thing. Because a degree of deception is important to maintain social etiquette, it forces you to take a side and encourages reliance instead of autonomy. So why do people lie? Generally, a degree of deception is necessary to maintain social etiquette. Our mental filter keeps us from saying things that may be offensive or hurt others. Ladies, men probably won't tell you if the dress you're wearing makes you look fat. Men, ladies probably won't tell you that they're jealous of that actress you think is perfect. Sometimes lying is just the best way not to hurt feelings. Avoiding conflict is typically the number one reason for lying, whether it's big or small, and we've learned it from a young age. An expose on lying featured recently in the U.S. News and World Reports found that we learned how to lie as early as the age of 3, something we model from our parents. By age 6, children lie on average 2 to 3 times per day. Social etiquette also calls for fitting in with a group, which sometimes means telling a lie or two. In the same story in U.S. News, it was discovered that college students generally exaggerate their GPA by a few decimals. However, a positive effect is that the exaggeration typically causes them to boost their actual grades to meet their imaginary ones. Another social reason for lying is our own self-esteem. Lying to ourselves is the most common. Telling yourself that you'll just go to the gym tomorrow or you'll only stay with friends for 1 hour is something we've all done. Typically, they don't get upheld. These little false promises correlate to how we see ourselves. This self-image of how we see ourselves and assume others see us sometimes is the biggest lie of all, once we psychologically could do anything to keep intact. In the words of psychologist Robert Feldman, it's socially useful to tell lies. Social conformity is another reason people lie. People are often unwilling to give their honest opinion on something because of it. Honesty forces you to take a stance on an issue, even if it's something not really worth the effort. Arguing with your friend over whether or not the new pair of shoes they just bought or which sports team is doing well this year may not really be worth the effort. Bella DiPaolo, the psychologist mentioned earlier, who was trying to figure out how often college students lie, once said, "It probably takes less thinking to tell the expected polite lie than the more difficult truth." And let's face it, sometimes we just don't know what we're talking about. Sometimes you're faced with an essay question on a test, a question by your boss, or a situation you really just need to get out of. The rambling lie, usually abbreviated by 2 famous letters, is the method most people will turn to in any of these situations. And why? Because internal and external social pressures tell us that a small chance of skating by is better than no chance at all. This pressure becomes even worse in social groups. In groups, there is a larger pressure for individuals to adopt a group mindset and go along with beliefs. Depending on the group, this can lead to positive outcomes. For a student joining an honors society, you could see an increase in grades and campus involvement. However, for a student joining a cult, you could see radical changes in personal beliefs, a plummet in interest in previous friendship and family, and other negative outcomes. Finally, by being honest, people may be actually hindering more than they are helping. If people always gave their honest opinion, it would discourage people from being able to have a sense of autonomy and develop answers to questions and problems themselves. Around the time toddlers discover they can lie, about 18 months to 3 years old, they enter into a stage described by psychologist Erik Erikson's psychosocial developmental stages as autonomy versus shame and doubt. It is in this period that toddlers are able to realize the power of the word no and begin struggling with their desire for independence and exploration. Essentially, their confidence at being able to do basic tasks is built here in this stage. However, for those whose doubt is shaken, whether it is by accidents or an overprotective or critical parent, reliance is often learned instead. Reliance created a self-hindering cycle in which you must continue to depend on others because you will not be capable of figuring it out on your own. Such thinking damages self-esteem. Being unable to trust your own decision and task accomplishing cripples independence. The person then becomes someone who is in constant need of opinions and incapable to figure out things for themselves. If these people struggling with autonomy were given the truth, it would cripple their self-esteem more and create a channel of reliance, never encouraging them to go out and experience things for themselves. Despite what our parents and historical figures tell us, sometimes telling the truth isn't always in our best interest. Lying is a socially necessary function in order to preserve feelings, solidify groups, and discourage reliance. And it's common, too. We lie within 10 minutes, on average 3 times, to a stranger, let alone someone we know well. Studies cited in the U.S. News article also discovered that not only do we lie a lot, but we're bad at detecting them. People can only detect a lie about 50% of the time. Often, the reason we don't catch them is because they are exactly what we want to hear. I encourage you, pay attention for the rest of today. See what you notice yourself and people you talk to saying. The biggest lie we make about lying is that we don't do it at all. Society has taught us that we should call it tact or social graces instead, but the truth about lying is that no matter what we choose to call it, we all do it. It's just a matter of whether or not you get caught.